Three, two, one, here we go. Rainman's Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also, interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man with another episode for you today. Before I get into that, however, I want to thank all of you who are part of the Rain Man's Take community. Thank you very much. If you're new to the program, welcome. I know you're going to love the content. So if you could, go ahead and hit that subscribe button that you're going to find at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Also, if you could watch this video to the end, I would really appreciate that. That's going to help me with the YouTube algorithm, which helps us get this word out to more people, which really helps to get that conversation going. So thank you all very much. And on to today's episode. What I wanted to talk about today was the war on free speech. According to Al Gore recently, the fact that there is alternative media doing great reporting is a threat to democracy. He said this in a speech at the latest COP28 climate summit the other day. He's saying that he wants to go back to the day when only a few mainstream media outlets controlled the news, or more accurately, the narrative. The rise of alternative news sources is evidence that the public is moving away from the legacy mainstream media sources, and that, I think, is a good thing. And it's also the epitome of a democratic society. In my view, it's a way to keep those in power in check, which was the original goal of an independent media in the first place. The news media, the fourth estate, used to be a watchdog exposing government overreach and corruption. Now it's the propaganda arm of that same overreaching and corrupt governments and powerful elites. The Al Gore speech proves this point perfectly. And I'll go ahead and I'll read a little bit from an article. This I found on modernity.news by Paul Joseph Watson. And this was from December 11th. And it's titled, Al Gore Warns People Having Access to Non-Mainstream Information Threatens Democracy. Quoting the article here, Al Gore says that people having access to information outside of mainstream media sources is a threat to democracy and that social media algorithms ought to be banned. Gore whined that social media had disrupted the balance that used to exist that made representative democracy much better. The former vice president said that functioning democracy relied on a shared base of knowledge that serves as a basis for reasoning together collectively, but that social media that is dominated by algorithms upsets this balance. According to Gore, people are being pulled down rabbit holes by algorithms that are quoting him here, the digital equivalent of AR-15s. They ought to be banned. They really ought to be banned. Gore claimed it's an abuse of the public forum and that people were being sucked into echo chambers. Now, apparently, the only echo chamber that should be allowed to exist is Gore's own rabbit hole, wherein the earth is constantly on the brink of destruction thanks to people not obeying his technocratic mandates. Perhaps Gore is unhappy at his own misinformation being fact-checked by individuals who have access to information not produced by corporate media sources that are friendly to him. Gore infamously predicted that the North Polar ice cap would be ice-free within 5 to 7 years. Obviously, that never happened. And as Thomas Cartonacci documents in an article from this past January on FoxNews.com, Gore has a storied history of making climate change predictions that turn out to be spectacularly wrong. No wonder why he wants to ban dissent. Now, could it also be that because Al's positions and the extreme wealth he has accumulated as a result of those positions is being threatened with an alternative viewpoint? One of my main positions here at Rainman's Take has always been you cannot just get your news from one source. And currently, if that one source is any of the mainstream media outlets, you are uninformed at best and completely left in the dark at the worst. The mainstream media has a stranglehold on how news is disseminated, which effectively controls the prevailing narratives promoted by governments and elites. As an example of this, according to a Business Insider website, in an article by Ashley Lutz from 2012, she uses a graphic in her article with the following statistics. First, there are 6 media giants control 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. They are GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. 232 media executives control the information diet of 277 million Americans. And by the way, many of those executives are members of the elite Davos crowd, the World Economic Forum, and other globalist organizations who definitely do not have the best interests of the U.S. and its citizens in mind. And then finally, 178 million unique users read Time Warner News every month. 2 of those sites include CNN and Time. The alternative media is gaining ground with opposing viewpoints, and people seem eager for that news. And these alternative sources are not all crackpots like the mainstream media wants you to believe. Take, for example, Matt Taibbi, currently writing as an independent journalist on Substack. I certainly remember him as a fiery anti-Trump writer from Rolling Stone magazine. Back in the day, Rolling Stone and all the other left-leaning news outlets could not get enough of Taibbi's anti-Trump slant. However, Taibbi lost the left's love when he actually showed some journalistic integrity and wrote several articles counter to or exposing the left's narrative. Now Taibbi lives on Substack and is free to investigate and write about stories about corruption. He and Glenn Greenwald, who's another excellent journalist abandoned by the left, are now thorns in the left side, all because they chose to keep their journalistic integrity and report facts about stories we, the people, need to be aware of. Now, as an aside, Taibbi has started a Racket News, which is a new format he's experimenting with, to, as he puts it, to get the news out a lot faster with a new live stream format. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the left went after him hard and even hauled him and other journalists in front of a congressional hearing to be berated by leftist members of Congress. Taibbi's courage and journalistic integrity were on full display, and I highly recommend you research those hearings. Now, you may think that Al Gore only wants the supposed conspiracy theorists silenced, but he wants all people like Taibbi even more because they have the gravitas and are exposing some pretty damning stories of government overreach and corruption. When there were only a few news sources back in the day, it was easy to push a narrative, but those days were also different. Some news outlets actually wanted to find truth. Hence, you get famous examples like the Woodward and Bernstein's famous Watergate investigation that took down a sitting president. The courageous journalists in today's world can be found on alternative news outlets because the mainstream media has become an unashamed cover man and propagandist for the Beltway power structure. After all, journalists from the New York Times and the Washington Post won Pulitzer Prizes for the coverage of the now entirely debunked theory, read disinformation here, of Russia colluding with Trump in the 2016 election. And to my knowledge, they have not given those prizes back. And that's not the first time that a prize has been given to a New York Times reporter for shoddy, purposely misleading, and sometimes flat-out wrong reporting. Go ahead and Google the Times reporter named Walter Duranty winning the Pulitzer for his purposely misleading pro-Russian articles in the 1930s. Now, if you're like me and a lot of others in this country who are tired of being told what to believe, all to support a prevailing narrative, you have no doubt begun to read many sources covering a topic, and then you make an informed decision. This type of behavior is what the global power elites abhor, an involved and suspicious citizenry being able to learn about what goes on behind the curtain. Now, love him or hate him, Alex Jones is a firebrand, but if you read any of his stuff, you realize he's been right on many issues that at the time he was pilloried as a nutjob conspiracy theorist. The list of conspiracy facts seems to grow longer every day. Now, if the mainstream media elites have shills like Al Gore and others out there saying, if their near total control of information is protecting democracy, then you know they are really concerned. Maybe the citizens are starting to wake up, and that loss of control is not going over well. Alternative media is exposing the corrupt underbelly of the elites in power, and that is why they are fighting back as hard as they are to stop it. But I think right now the genie is out of the bottle. A more complete understanding is out there if only you are willing to dive a little deeper into a subject or a current event. Stay informed and question everything, and read as many sources as possible. That's the only way this republic will survive and hold the elites accountable. It's our responsibility as citizens of this republic to want to know what is going on. We are responsible for what information we consume and the positions we formulate. Remember the old adage, the foundation of a free country is that your freedom to swing your fist ends where someone else's nose begins. Now that means to me that we are accountable for our actions, and if they infringe on someone else's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, there must be consequences. Free speech is not violence. Violence is unhinged people committing those acts. That is the violence. And our system should be set up to protect people and punish people based on actions. When one side is favored over the other, that is where problems begin. And we're seeing that now with the focus on censorship of alternative ideas. Labeling something as disinformation to justify censorship is so dangerous and erodes trust. I say, have all the information out there and let the people decide for themselves. You are either for free speech or against it. Free means even the stuff that is offensive. People need to be more responsible for what they allow to influence their viewpoints and emotions, and of course, be accountable for their actions. Free speech is not violence. Violence is violence, and those perpetrating violence should be punished and called out regardless of what their beliefs. When the levers of control are tipped significantly in one direction, that's a problem. The side in control decides what is appropriate for dissemination and censorship. That's where we are today, watching an uprising against those in power and control of the information. One last thing. It's taking the richest man in the world to really bring to light the anti-free speech movement. I personally love it, and I am all for what Elon Musk is doing. Let me just read a little bit from an article I read the other day that kind of talks about this. This article is from Zero Hedge, from the Zero Hedge website by Tyler Durden from December 13th, and it's titled "Ready to Rumble: Lawsuits Against Censorship. The Censorship Industrial Complex Heat Up After Musk Kicks Open the Floodgates." It took the richest man in the world to begin dismantling the censorship industrial complex, a tightly connected network of government agencies, think tanks, private media platforms, and activist organizations whose goal is to censor, control, and bankrupt free speech platforms under the guise of battling hate speech and misinformation that run counter to the prevailing establishment narratives. One of these entities, the Center for Countering Digital Hate, is a dark money organization run by an alleged former British intelligence operative. Now, we know all this because just over a year ago, ex-owner Elon Musk disseminated the Twitter files to a small group of independent journalists from which he learned that the Biden administration collaborated with Twitter to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story, ban Donald Trump, and that the FBI essentially had its entire arm up Twitter's ass in order to shape and control narratives. So he's fighting back, obviously, with several ongoing lawsuits, and I really wish him the best, and I hope this works. So this is what I think we need to protect free speech, which is absolutely vital in a free society. Not a totalitarian society that elites like Al Gore are actually promoting and hoping for, which seeks to censor information. They use protecting democracy as the cover for their totalitarian policies and positions. Now, I wish all the alternative news sites and the people like Elon Musk well, and I will be watching to see which direction our society goes. So that's it for right now. I just wanted to comment on that article I saw about Al Gore's statements, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we get the conversation going, and I'll end it like I always do. If you're in the military, the police departments, the fire departments, or the first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. This is the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, Observations on the World We Live In. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rainman's Take on Instagram at Rainman's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.